job that brought that meaningful card to you? Let's start with Joe.
There's a Burger King commercial. Yes. I was about 13 years old, and my face gets ripped off by Scooby-Doo, so dreams come true.
I mean, after working with Scooby-Doo, it's all downhill from there.
Yeah, it's downhill. Here I am.
Thomas, for you?
I actually punted my SAG card. I got the opportunity to get it, but on this movie called Loser. And I decided not to do it because you had to pay to get it, and I was a theater actor in New York and I couldn't afford to pay to get into SAG. So I punted it down the road, and then my next job was like this really small independent film, and I made no money on it. And they were like, you have to go in the union, or else you can't be in the movie. And so I had to go put it on a credit card, and I was like, fuck this industry. And that has literally been my ethos ever since.
Wait, what's the name of that movie so we can get you some residuals back?
It's called Happy Hour.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Anthony LaPaglia and Eric Stoltz and Sandrine Holt, and yeah, it's a really lovely little thing.
So everyone rent it so he gets his money back.
Impossible.
Christina, for you?
Well, that is hard to top, Thomas. My third Verizon wireless commercial.
Oh,
Yes. That kept me fed and good for a while, so that's how I got it.
It's a product I believe in.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
What's up, y'all? These are the best ones, right? You get to talk to the homies. Yeah. So I got my SAG card third year at Yale School of Drama. I got a phone call from my manager at the time, and a director by the name of Gus Van Zant and a writer named Dustin Lance Black. I just finished this thing called Milk, and they were now doing a mini-series about the gay rights movement, and they needed one of the guys, and I auditioned for it, and I had to either I had to be prepared to drop out of school, and one of the producers called James Bundy, who is the dean of James is still the dean. Yeah, he is. Wicked. Yeah, I gotta talk to him next week. I hope he's still there. Yeah, and essentially negotiated on my behalf, and went off and did the TV series and got my SAG card and finished up my diploma.
Did you hear that audible? When he actually said Yale School of Drama, the audible.
You should.
Glenn, for you?
Spy Kids 3D Game Over.
Yes!
Wasn't nominated that year. We were close. I think we were in. It was one of those, like, not the first tier, maybe not the second tier, but we were up for the SAG Ensemble.
The Kids' Choice Award.
Should have got it. Maybe this time around.
You actually do have a SAG award, though, from Hidden
I do,
Figures.
from Hidden Figures, yeah.
Yes, where do you keep it?
I keep it in my theater, in my house. It's not like a theater
Whoa.
theater. Well, that sounds. It's a room in my house where I watch movies. It's not a theater. It's not like, I shouldn't call it that.
I
I'm impressing no one, guys. I think
No praise. Glenn lives upstairs, actually.
In which of your homes is this theater?
Guys, I rent. I have no money. It's a place where I watch movies. I call it. It's my church, the theater.
He owns a church.
starts with Glen. You're a producer on this film. How did you first become aware of this story, and what interested you in bringing it to the screen?
I had a buddy who told me about this book, and then my uncle Don, who's actually going to be coming to the premiere tomorrow, was like, hey, I got this book for you, Devotion. And I was like, my buddy just told me about this book. And so we all read the same book on a fishing trip in Alaska, and as a family we all got to talk about it's again, I got invited on the trip. I didn't pay for money to go fishing in Alaska.
Yo, Spy Kids 3 paid.
Guys, that residual check, that really, son of a gun. So anyway, so everybody was reading the same book. Immediately after reading it, I thought it was a movie. So while I was shooting Set It Up in New York, I drove a rental car, the basic standard rental car to Concord, Massachusetts. I stayed at a Holiday Inn as I met the Hudner family and got the life rights to Tom Hudner and then the rights to the book. So it's been about a 5-year journey. And I'm just so thrilled with how it's all come together with this, dream team. It's been amazing.
I mean, it really does seem like things just fell into place in such an amazing way. Because JD, I know you have a very personal connection to this story as well, and I'm sort of curious how you first became aware of the project.
Yeah, so I kind of put out to the ether that I was looking for a story around aviation, and whether that was like science fiction or a drama or anything in between. And that's because 30 years after Jessie was commissioned, my dad was as a naval aviator. So I grew up on Navy bases, I grew up around aviation. My dad was a Blue Angel for 2 years. Like all my earliest memories are just so tied to sort of the spirit of this movie. So after I sort of put that signal out, I was sent the script, and it was the first time in a very, very long time, honestly, maybe ever, that I read a script and cried. And that you got to listen to. So read that an hour after I got it. Called the team immediately. Got a meeting with Black Label. I was like, hey, I know not to come in here so hot, but here's where I'm from. This is what my life is. My dad and this and that, whatever. And then we got to work very quickly. And step one was meeting Glen, and immediately after that, flew to Atlanta to try to get Mr. Majors.
I mean, having seen the film, it's so obvious why JD was the perfect director for this. But I'm curious, Glen, did you have a lot of directors who maybe had a different take on it that led you to be so certain that JD was the one?
I mean, JD, when I met JD, it's like when you're looking at a filmmaker for this is you have to be a Swiss Army knife of a director to really understand how this movie is put together. Not only does it have to have major scope, all the stuff that happens on the ground, all the stuff that happens in the air, and a period piece in order to build something of this scope, but also has to understand the nuance of the relationships within it. And the nuances are potentially a trap for someone who doesn't have that life experience and doesn't have the heart, the emotional intelligence and stuff to kind of navigate that. And immediately talking to JD, you realize he's such a special human being where he does have this fascination with aviation and the Navy through that entire experience, but also just cares more than anybody I've ever met in terms of how to tell this story and tell it well. And it really did. This story's been so close to my heart for so long. I didn't want to give it away to anyone that didn't feel as invested. And you just meet JD, and he just knew how to do all of it. And also when I watch those other movies, he knows how to frame up a story emotionally, which is such an important thing for actors to look at when you're looking at directors. How does that person get to frame up your performance? How are they going to tell that story in a way that impacts an audience? And if this movie doesn't strike you emotionally, it does not work. And so JD, again, when I met with him, the heavens opened, and I'm really glad we just marched into that thing together, because it's just been a ride of a lifetime.
I mean, the movie looks fantastic, but you're right, like, none of that matters without these amazing performances, and this ensemble is so outstanding. Jonathan, you're so vibrant as Jessie Brown. Did you know anything about his story when this project came your way, and what interested you in being part of it?
No, I didn't know. I didn't know who Jessie Leroy Brown was. I had no idea, which was interesting because I had kind of worked around, artistically around the Korean War. I played a character who was also a Korean War veteran, and so I'd done my research on the war and on the conflict, etc. But no, I didn't know this. This folk hero, I didn't know the cat, but I got to know him. And my first acquaintance with him was reading the script. I read the script before I read the book. That's right, Amy? That's right, okay, yeah, that's right. And very much, I bet like Glenn as well, but JD, as he said, he cried, he wept, and for me, I was grabbed immediately by the journey of this individual, by his ethos, by his quiet pathos. It grabbed me, outside of it being a movie and airplanes and all of that, there's something very kindred about us. And again, when I read something, I look at the level of difficulty. How hard is this going to be? What is the expense of spirit for this role? And Jessie required a great deal. And then I got, I'm having it. I want to be responsible for this guy. This was the handshake. Good on you if you knew the story of Jessie Brown beforehand. Well done. But we have stories about Harriet Tubman and FDR and Martin Luther King, and we have multiple pictures about these guys and women. This is our first introduction to Jessie, and so I thought, well, I wanna step into that. I wanna take that on, and they gave me the opportunity to do so.
And you and Glenn hadn't met before. This was your first time meeting, because you have to know sort of who you're going to be spending time with.
No, Glenn and I, you want to speak? You want to talk?
No, you got this.
Yeah, no, we got this. No, Glenn and I had not met in the flesh in this iteration of life. No, we had not met. However, I do feel that Glen Powell and I have been, brothers for a very long time. Maybe one day he was an ant and I was a piece of grass. We got to know each other, or I don't know, but it's quite deep. I'm just speaking for myself. It's
I'll be your ant, man.
Okay, I was the ant.
I'm the piece of grass.
No, but he can be whatever he wants.
No, that's cool.
No, that's cool.
No, I'm always happy to be your grass.
Or he's my ant man.
Hey!
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
So
Did you know pretty instantaneously when you met that this was going to work? Was that chemistry there?
No, absolutely. That's the other thing, is that I remember when we talked, now infamously at a bathhouse in New York. That's where Jonathan Majors requires anybody pursuing him for a movie to meet. So we're stripped down to next to nothing in a bathhouse, and I'm pitching in the movie, barely staying conscious. But the thing that I realized with Jonathan is that it's a true story. The thing about Jonathan is that he's more committed than any actor I've ever met in my entire life, in terms of, I cared about this story so much, and to tell it authentically with depth and nuance and all that stuff. And when I met him, he was like, we will do whatever it takes to get this right. And to be in the trenches with someone like that there's just no greater privilege, because you're protected. You're fighting with the guy next to you to do it right. And movies are not easy, especially something like this, where this was a really tough sell to studios. It's a really tough sell It's a very small target to hit, and it starts with Jessie Brown. That character has to live and breathe in a three-dimensional environment with a three-dimensional actor, an actor that can pull from such a deep place. And so talking to Jonathan again, like, I felt so at peace, even though I was sweating from weird places I've never sweated before, because Jonathan brought me to the depths of hell into this Russian bathhouse in New York. But I felt so at peace and confident that he was the guy. And it's just it's a wonderful thing. You see it on the screen today. What a special actor we have here. So.
Just to be specific, did you meet in the locker room first, or was it in?
We met in the street.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was sitting out front, and he came in with his flight jacket and, you know, looking all super Hollywood. I was in Top Gun, you know, Wicked, bro. Get your ass in this, you know. Yeah. We looked after each other, yeah.
I'm like the biggest douchebag at this screening. I came into a trap.
We set out from the very beginning to break each other. But just real quick, because he has been taking a lot of shit today, it does need to be said that this movie doesn't happen without Glen Powell.
No doubt.
And I don't mean that just because he read the book and had the rights and all of that sort of stuff. I mean, I genuinely mean, like, it doesn't happen without him. Like, he is the heartbeat behind the whole beast that is this massive movie. And, like, we're very, very lucky that it was Glen who found this movie. We're very lucky. Very.
Thank you.
And speaking of heartbeats of the movie, Christina, Daisy is such a vital character in all the story. Her relationship with Jessie, it feels so authentic. I imagine it's not hard to pretend to be in love with Jonathan Majors. Yeah. But I'm curious, did that relationship develop organically? I always think it's odd when you cast people and say, okay, you've been married for 10 years. And then, you know, maybe you meet on set. How did you sort of build that rapport?
We had conversations. We talked, we went out, I would send him passages from the book. This is what Daisy thought, this is what she felt. You don't watch them fall in love in film. And so there is this thing of, I just wanted it to be as natural and as true to what I thought that it was. And when you do read the book, you find out that these two people went through so much together. And I mean, like, terrible shit, like racist shit. And for him to be in this position Daisy doesn't know what it is to fly. She doesn't know that itch, she doesn't know that burn, but she loves him enough to be the person that's there for him. And so that was important to us, but then what cemented it for me was Jessie's last letter to her. And it is 4 pages of a man telling a woman that no man has ever loved anyone as much as I love you. And when we were married not only in body, but in spirit and in soul, and I will love you in this life. I mean, I sat up in tears for a week. I have read that letter to every woman I know. And it was a lot. That's weighty, that's heavy. You know, people know love, but to know love like this, he walked 10 miles to go see her. Like, he watched her for 2 years before he ever even asked her out on a date. Snuck and married her during training, what you're not supposed to do. But he needed to pass this test, and he needed her as close to him as physically possible. And so it was a lot of conversations. It was a lot of, examples of Black love. It was a lot of conversations that we've had with other people that we knew and admired and loved, and kind of put all of these little pieces together to get what it is that you see. But I will say that in playing Daisy, I truly felt that on set, Jonathan as Jessie truly loved me as Daisy. And I've never said that before. There was something. He was so committed, he was so Jessie, he was so in it, that what you see up there is what I felt.
About the Navy, about aviation. Was there some sort of a boot camp they put you through, or how did you make it so authentic?
Well, I mean, you're looking at it down there. I mean, JD, the superstar director that we are so grateful to have lead us through this. He provided every single one of us with real photos, video, some audio of these real people that existed, that we were lucky enough to play on screen and get to know them. I mean, and on the aviation side to the North Korea side, like, this is something I think we all can agree we just didn't learn enough about in school. So I don't know to call my history teacher and curse him out, or to hope that something like this one day can, encourage the younger generation to look into it, to understand this a bit more and get to know these unreal people and their beautiful story. So a lot of material and some of the families, and limiting how much you want to get to know the families. But it was really a beneficial experience.
There feels like there's so much camaraderie in these relationships that we see on screen. I'm sort of curious if that happened naturally. That's why I wondered if there was a boot camp, if you all went through that together. Well, you're in charge, so maybe you wouldn't have done that.
Well, we shot in COVID. We shot in the middle of the pandemic in Savannah, Georgia, where there was no pandemic, by the way.
Georgia never shut down.
It's funny how a lot of productions shoot there now, huh?
Interesting. So we were on an island in a lot of ways. Like we were really insulated inside of this community that was doing its own thing and around us, and we just sort of our relationships with each other grew by showing up to work, and you can just sort of feel that, you have like this group of like puppies that just come shooting out of their trailers. And they're like, holy shit, I haven't seen anybody in a couple of days, And like, I'm just really happy to be here, and oh my God, they're gonna fly a Corsair by us, and like, we're gonna get to do all of this really cool stuff. And like, there's just this abundant joy that you can sort of feel amongst this group of people, not just in getting to work together, but getting to tell a story of value, getting to tell it with a director who is so intimately connected to the story, and whom a leader whom we all looked up to and loved and admired, and you want to make proud and you want to do right by. And then it all just sort of cascades down from the top, and then you have, like I said, you have Glen, who's just this incredible leader and loves this project and handles everything with so much just kindness and humility and grace. It's part of the reason we give him so much shit, because he actually is such a humble dude. Like, everybody on set loves him, the crew all loves him, he's not a dick, he's just great, and then you have Majors over here, and like, you roll in and you're like, oh, this guy's doing the work, and like, he recognizes the weight of responsibility that he is carrying in terms of telling this story, and when he's setting the pace, everybody else keeps up. You have to. You don't want to be the one who's dragging ass. And then, we didn't get an opportunity to work together, but we, because of the nature of the way that JD made this community for us to work in, we would get to see, if we wanted to, some of the work that was being done the days that we weren't there. And so we had the opportunity to sort of clock in. And from like the first instant that I saw the first little frame, I was like, oh my God, the love story that exists inside of this love story, is so powerful and so beautiful. And like, you just, that just by itself as an actor just immediately sets the world, right? That you as an artist are participating in. And then the research and the shit to do the character, like that all comes from your own stuff. Like Joe said, we got to know some of the families. Like I know the Savoli family now. I'm less interested in what happens tomorrow night at our premiere than I am interested in what happens in Warwick, Rhode Island on a little movie theater in Rhode Island and are watching the
They
movie.
haven't seen it yet?
They haven't seen it yet.
Wow.
Are you gonna go? Are you invited?
I was invited. I'm at Disneyland with our children, or I would be there.
Yeah. I don't know if I would want to be there.
I don't know what I'm gonna send them stuff,
Yeah.
like champagne and shit, I think.
Yeah.
But I'm also just terrified.
Yeah.
You know, I just wanna, the most recognition he ever got was having a post office named after him.
Really?
And so
Wow.
it's really important for me to have his family feel like his service, which was extraordinary in World War II, and his service, which was extraordinary in the Korean War, and the way that he welcomed a new way of doing things into the naval aviation community without making a fucking thing about it, was so important and valuable and worthwhile that I just want to make sure that his family feels respected.
Oh, I think they're gonna be so happy. You mentioned the authenticity brought to this project, and everyone said that JD was there to be an expert on set, but you had another expert on set, right?
Powell?
Did you let your dad?
Oh!
Was it your dad on set? Was that
I
right?
thought you were talking about Dr. Powell.
My dad was on set for a month and change,
Oh, wow.
which is great because he's a naval aviator, and difficult because it's your dad. But you know, it was the kind of, where I got overwhelmed is that, you know, it wasn't just going to him to ask, like, okay, you know, the angle of attack, we're coming down to the bridge, if you're telling, you know, wingman that you need to peel, like, it wasn't just getting those details right, but to go over to Village and just like check in about, you know, what was it like one more time when you told mom you were leaving on cruise, you know, and to be able to get under the hood of those feelings, you know, of those moments of the film, just sort of gave me a little bit more wind in my sails to communicate to my actors, like, this is really what we're after, you know, and sort of the emotional reality of being a military family, you know, is as important as, you know, making sure that that F4U Corsair is the right model that was released in 1951, not 1950, you know, like, so there were definitely multiple targets to hit in terms of bringing authenticity to the story. And again, look, it is, of course, weird, beautiful, but weird to have your parents at work with you, as long as they were. But just that devotion at every step, being this kind of, you know, full spectrum family, you know, they're certainly a part of that, and it's really special that, you know, I will never spend time with them like I did on this movie. And I think that I would hope is felt in what you watch as well.
Before we go, I want to remind everyone that this movie actually opens on November 23rd, and I would love if you could spread the word because it's such a special I've seen Black Panther, so go see this. I do want to ask, though, the actors. I've told Jonathan this, but I'm embarrassed that I didn't know anything about the story going into it. And I'm sort of curious, what does it mean to you to finally be able to bring Jessie and Tom and Daisy's screen to the world so that people will know their names?
It means everything. I mean, why this movie is done the way that it was done is because Glenn looked Tom in the eyes and said, I'm gonna do this. If you do this to me, I'll do it, and I'll do it at the highest level. And that's what he did. Yeah. And whatever blessings, whatever God's rained down on him, that he was able to keep this promise, that's everything. And so to be able to be Daisy, for Glenn, for Jonathan, for JD, to trust me in telling this story, you know, she's not here, but I hope she's proud. And for audiences, you know, just being able to see this woman, to see this Black woman who in the script is described as Jessie's anthem, his heartbeat, to be able to carry this, I just want them to see this woman, to know this woman, to know